of the Southland, Mr. Jake Grant, what would you do if you hit a game-winning shot to preserve an undefeated season?
I would definitely pull the old Jose Alvarado jump on the scorer's table, like that. I feel like you have to. Elevation is key there. And I know you hit the shot, you win the game. I don't know. I just feel like height, getting vertical, is the number one thing to do after that. Whether you're jumping on something or over something, through something, really the jumping is key to the celebration, I think.
How good are your hamstrings? Can you give me a demonstration, because podcasting is a visual medium?
Well, let's just say I played 2 sets of tennis last week, and I spent the next 2 days griping about how much my knees hurt. So, I definitely can't put my money where my mouth is on that one.
Are you like 22 or 40? I think it's much closer to 40.
Why not both?
That's not how time works, but I will give that to you. All right, everyone. Welcome again to Scions of the Southland. We're doing different intros this week because I really wanted to talk about Jalen Suggs' shot last night to help Gonzaga stay undefeated and beat UCLA at the death. I also need to mention that Jalen Suggs was an Athens football recruit, and they let him go, just like every other athlete. That's good that they let slip through their grasp. Mr. Grant, do you have any other thoughts before we move on to actual Georgia Tech-related things?
See, I didn't know you were going to plug your tweet, but I was sitting here waiting for you to plug your tweet, and I was not disappointed. I like to think I can read you like a book at this point, so congrats.
This is good podcast host synergy. So, in that spirit, I will let you decide where to start our non-rev sports recap today.
Dude, we have a short week this week. After March and literally every sport being in action, I feel like, what do we have, 5, 6 to talk about? That's a breeze, but I feel like we like to lead off with track, and I see no reason to change that.
All right, let's head to the track. You have listed here on our little spreadsheet that track has 6 athletes, in the top 30 of the NCAA National Outdoor Rankings. So give me a little color commentary on that.
Yeah, that's all courtesy of ramblinrec.com. I know I gripe about not having media guides from them a lot, and I will continue to do that. But credit where credit is due, especially the fact they've gotten a lot better giving access to information like this. Like this, I think hearing 6 in the top 30 is really good to kind of color our perspective on how good of a season some of these athletes are having, considering, they only have a meet or two at home every year, and we don't get to see them a lot in person. But putting them in that national context really is key. And with that, we all know that we have a really good women's cross-country team. They've had much-deserved success and acclaim in the past month for their very good showing nationally. But 2 of our 6 athletes on this list, Nicole Fegans, Liz Galarza, Galarza. Wow, I always do that. I feel bad. Apologies.
Pronunciation is hard. As someone with a foreign name, pronunciation is hard.
That is fair. As a Jake Grant, I guess I can't really relate to that. But
Jake Grante. Yeah, we're going to go with that from now.
Yeah, and at number 2, Fegans, one of the best to do it in the country. She's got a 15:37.16, and Liz has a 16:13.17 in the outdoor 500 meter, and both of those times are really, really good. So we may not have a ton of depth in a lot of events, but in this one in particular, especially when you consider Andrew Kent's top 10 time in the 5,000 on the men's side, he's at a 13:47.77. Distance running, man, they're keeping the track boat afloat. The rest is in the field events with the long jump, high jump, and pole vault, kind of rounding out our top 3. We got Bria Matthews, Carla Duplessis. Wow, I do not know how to say that, and Olivia Moore. So we got some seniors, we got some youth. It's a good mix. 6 in the top 30 is, it's not going to win you a national championship, but we have individuals who are very, very relevant in their respective fields, and that's a good thing to have. So,
6 of 30 is 20%, dog. So, not doing terrible there.
6 of 30. What? I don't get where you.
That's 1/5. It's 1/5. It's 20%.
But it's just 6 athletes in the top 30 of their respective events.
Never mind. Okay. Math is hard, all right? Did not major in math.
We're going to move on. Events? That feels like a lot.
Anyway, we're going to move on because we have, despite there not being that many sports, we have hidden agenda items to discuss later on down the pipe. Women's tennis, it's senior week. Both of us caught a little bit of their match versus Syracuse at home at Ken Byers Tennis Complex, which included a very dramatic doubles point victory. But they ended up dropping the entire match 4-3 and only took 2 of the singles matches. What went wrong here?
Well, first off, I'm not going to dive straight into this and say what went wrong because I feel like that's a little bit unfair thing to do on senior week. But no, as we frame this, I think it's important to reflect on just how good of a team and just how hard of a schedule they've played. They're at 12-8 and still in the top 12 in the country. No team with that many losses even comes close to them. So that's just a testament to the quality of players they have on their team and the fact that they played a freaking meat grinder all year. With that, I think you can say Tech was kind of dealt a pretty crummy hand right off the old at bat because Kenya Jones, COVID senior, number 3 singles player in the country, part of the number 1 doubles team in the country, was not playing. I don't think she would miss her senior week without some sort of injury, COVID type thing. I'm not going to
speculate, but yeah, she was definitely out.
Yeah, she was out. We're not doing any more speculation.
It's not like we get an injury report for any of these things. We have to guess. Right now, guessing is a little,
but
problematic, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I spent most of that match a little bit hacked off because the chair umpires kept yelling at me, which was annoying. I was banging my feet on the bleachers after a couple points, and they said that was a illegal blowhorn, which no. And that's never happened.
Please change your Twitter name to that. Please change your Twitter name to illegal blowhorn.
Honestly, I might, but no, I've been going to tennis matches, men's and women's at Tech for 5 years and never had a single issue with that. So ACC refs, if you want to ban me from Ken Byers, I come at me, but I didn't know that
tempting.
Was
tempting.
I'll go to my grave cheering for these guys and gals at tennis. So, but yeah, no, in general, it was, this is weird. This is only one match that we have to talk about between the two of them, but the ladies fought and I'll commend them on that. Carol Lee looked particularly good. I think she won in straight sets. Ava Rostar went down 6-0 in the first set. Came back came really close to going 6-0 in the second, but then dropped the third. And it came down to senior Vicky Flores on court 1, cramping pretty bad. Was a tough match. So always tough to lose one like that. I know for myself personally, between the seniors leaving for volleyball and this class, that was the first 2 sports that were active and able to watch when I started Yellow Jacket Roundup 4 years ago. So it's a little bit bittersweet to see the likes of, the Kenya and Vicky and Grace Rigsby and Dominique Washington, just in terms of them leaving. Congrats on 4 years. Like y'all did great work. And then again, with some of the cross country athletes we have too that are around that age as well. So a little bit bittersweet, but we got the ACC championship in store. Obviously, this team is really highly rated. I envision them getting an NCAA berth, and even then, they have the team championship. Kenya and Vicky hopefully will be good to go for doubles and singles because the two of them are, some of the best at their craft in the whole country. So that's the interesting thing about tennis. You don't have one tournament to watch, one national draw to watch. You have three. So there's
so
that.
You say interesting, and I hear terrifying. That's a lot of stress. That is a lot of stress.
Yeah. I think we'll actually get a couple entries in both of those tournaments too, based on the latest rankings, because I think it's either 64 or 128. And we definitely have some top 25 doubles and singles outside of Kenya and Vicky. So, the more the merrier, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about more berths. Far be it from me to complain about good things.
Speaking of, I think if we're going to be speculating on NCAA tournament stuff, we have some news on that later. But speaking of the men, they were out last week, and they're like spitting distance from the top 25 right now. I think they might be in action in the postseason too.
Interesting. I mean, I think we talked last week about the NC State win being a season-defining win, right? That being the clincher for an NCAA tournament berth if it comes down to it. And it just really, I know that you said like right now they're receiving votes in the poll. They are playing some pretty good tennis. I think one of the things for me is they just need to be a little bit more consistent week after week. They need to build on that NC State win coming down the stretch here. And I don't know. I haven't looked at the schedule. The schedule's not in front of me, so I don't know what they have left before ACCs. But it sets up to be a very promising close of the season for that program, I think.
Yeah. They haven't made the NCAA tournament since going 3 straight years in 2015, 16, and 17. But at 29, they're knocking on the door. They're in the neighborhood. If you assume 64 teams, 32 auto bids, you'd think they're going to be safe somewhere in there. But we just kind of have to wait to see on that. Hopefully they can ride out the rest of the season, notch some more wins. But yeah, no, Georgia Tech women, Georgia Tech men. It's we give a lot of time to obviously basketball. Both teams had great runs. Baseball, volleyball, women's cross country, men's and women's swimming record finishes. But don't count out men and women's tennis because they still have a lot of words left to write, if you will.
It sounds like you have a couple words left to write too, the way that you just slammed your keyboard. But
that was actually me dropping a pen that I was clicking. So, good times.
We all have our vices while recording podcasts. It's fine. I'll try not to be offended.
Notes. Yeah, I was going to say notes on tennis before we roll on. The men and women outside of Vicky Flores and Kenny Jones are young teams. So we should be seeing a lot of the rest of them in the future. So hopefully this is a program establishing run in as the postseason starts to pick up here with the two programs. So
yeah, solid. All right. I think we have a couple things to knock out here before we move on to more meat in the schedule today. Golf was on a bye. You said they're at the Calusa Cup starting yesterday, question mark?
Today. I'm going to refresh my page to see if I can get some results here. But they are one of the 3 teams in the clubhouse right now, and they're through 18 holes for all their players with a score of 294. They are in a 3-way tie for third with +6 behind Florida and Florida State. Florida State is the number 1 team in the country. Florida's 15th. They are tied with Oklahoma and Texas, who are both top 10 teams. Wake Forest currently sits in last. They are a top 10 team as well. Interestingly, Georgia Tech and Wake Forest are tied for the most ACC championships of all time. So if Wake Forest would like to play like this in the ACC championship as well, I'd be okay with that.
I think we would both appreciate it very much. The other note before we move on, softball got COVID rescheduled out of games again. They could not find another opponent, unlike last time, so they were off. I don't exactly have the softball schedule ahead of me for next week, but 2 weeks off in the middle of the season, and while the team is scuffling, hopefully it helps them get back on track.
Yeah, and they're actually slightly trending up, at least in RPI. I mean, 114 to 112 isn't crazy, but they've stabilized and have picked up some wins in recent weeks. I believe next week they are playing Louisville at home, so that'll be a fun one in my house, I'll tell you that.
I can only imagine. So let's talk about more important, or I guess actual things. Volleyball lost to Notre Dame. They got swept, but they did beat Duke this weekend. That is the end of their spring season. And then they found out earlier today, when recording this at around 6 p.m. on Sunday, that they will advance their first NCAA tournament since 2009. They'll play Lipscomb University on 14th at 7 p.m. on ESPN 3 for the chance to play number 3 overall seed Minnesota in the second round. So, what are your opening thoughts about the way that volleyball ended the season, this tournament draw? Give me some color commentary here.
Yeah, so I would actually like to point out that Georgia Tech is not actually unfamiliar with Lipscomb. They are a team that is, I believe, I can't remember what conference they're out of, but they're a team that we see somewhat often in like those preseason-y, Hyatt Regency invitationals where 3 random teams come to Georgia Tech and play at O'Keefe kind of dealio. Tech in 2019, the year that they won the NIVC, actually beat Lipscomb 3-1. Lipscomb is were rather abysmal in 2019, but Tech's 700th NCAA Division I win came over them in front of, I believe it was Mariana Brambilla's first or second game back, because she started the season on the bench with an injury last year. So 3-1, pretty solid win back then. Obviously, they've come along. I have to assume that they're in the tournament because they won the Atlantic Sun and not off being an at-large. It's a team that we've played before. We're for all the random teams that we could have gotten seeded against, one that we've played relatively recently is kind of interesting. So,
I am currently Googling the A-Sun volleyball standings, and they finished first in their division, but I think, I'm not sure that they actually finished first in the conference.
They might have played the other division winner, because weirdly, the ACC championship is dead outside, the regular season championship.
I really hate that the ACC is a one auto bid league in volleyball.
I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense not to have wouldn't you want your best teams to play more games against each other? Wouldn't you want to have a weekend where all the emphasis is on great tournament volleyball? But I don't know. I don't make the decisions. The coaches voted to get rid of it, so couldn't tell you that. But Georgia Tech kind of played themselves out of the driver's seat for the conference title, which is a bit of a shame.
That's the thing that I keep coming back to, right? And I am sorry for interrupting you, but I am a little upset or a little frustrated about this. We've been talking probably a good portion of the spring about how this team, like you said, has been in the driver's seat for the ACC, and they just kind of let it slip through their fingers. They didn't play well versus a down-ish Pitt team. Like, that Pitt team is usually very, very good, and they're not as good this year. They got swept by Pitt, they got swept by Notre Dame, and they got swept by Louisville. 3 teams that I'm pretty sure are all above them in the standings. I don't have the standings in front of me. Louisville ended up getting the auto bid and slotted 11th in the nation, or in the tournament as an overall 11th overall seed. That could have been Georgia Tech. And it's just frustrating to me that I really do like this volleyball team, and I'm looking forward to their first tournament game in literally 12 years, but it could have been better, right? We see the potential, like the delta in potential, right? It could have been better, and they got swept in those three most meaningful games.
Yep, they definitely did, and it's one of those things where, like, I don't know, it's not something you want to compare apples to apples, 2019 to 2020, because obviously it's a very different environment. The games you're playing, like, we got Louisville and Pitt on the road, and both of those are tough draws, but we did get Notre Dame at home, and we still lost. I mean,
Not
granted,
just lost, swept. It's
like,
they're all sweeps.
yeah, and those are three best teams by far that we played. So the ball was in our court. Haha, funny, whatever.
Well, it sure landed there a couple more times than it should have.
Wow, that's a bit savage, my guy.
I'm looking for wit. I'm not trying to be mean. I saw the opportunity for a joke.
But I know. But, like, and you can gripe that, like, wow, we got true road games instead of the neutral site where we play UVA at Pitt kind of deal.
Odds.
Like, but at the same time, we still didn't really capitalize in our own building either, and it's tough to go from in the driver's seat and presumptive if they hadn't played this spring schedule, conference champions, whatever. But it's kind of, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? And I don't know. Lipscomb, even in a down year last year, in 2019, went 16-13. This year, I believe they're 17-2. So it's not like they're going to be pushovers either. But Georgia Tech, I mean, if they're saving up their best win of the season, a real good time to do it would be in that second round matchup against Minnesota.
Ooh, yes, but again, first got to get through Lipscomb, and I did check that they did win the ASUN Conference Championship. I think that it was both the regular season and the tournament championship. I don't exactly know which gives them the auto bid, so that is up in the air. But doesn't matter. They won. Also, they have very strange gray alternates that just say Lippy on the front in cursive.
Oh, I don't like that. I do.
I will send you a picture. Hold on, I'm going to send you a picture of this. It's not my favorite uniform in the world, I will say. It is certainly a uniform one can wear.
All right, I'm opening it up. Yeah, that is they did choose to wear that. So
it was a choice that they took. Certainly a choice.
Not to roast Lipscomb volleyball too hard. It will be interesting to see them in action on the 14th? I think that's Thursday the 14th.
Yeah. I want to pull up if I can find it later, I'll pull up the overall seed list because that allegedly should have been released. And see how
all the games are in Omaha, correct?
Yes, my understanding is that this is a bubbled tournament. So there is that.
Omaha is quietly a very good sports city.
I'm telling you, or we were talking about it a couple weeks ago. College World Series plus Olympic swim trials. Heck of a trip.
That's been on my list for so long. So long. Maybe 2024.
Maybe. All right, let's move on to a team that is technically eligible for the College World Series in Omaha, Georgia Tech at baseball, who had a rough weekend versus 2016 title winners Virginia and went 1-2. They now rank 70th in D1 baseball's RPI metric. I think they are currently number 6 by a lot of different, or right around number 6 in a couple of different polls. It's the same old story, isn't it?
I think maybe by 2024 we'll have a working bullpen, so that might get us to the College World Series. But in terms of spread between polls, you got D1 baseball at the top, ranking us at number 6. Then you got the rest of the polls at like 8, 9, 10, and 12. That's D1 baseball, the National College Baseball Writers, Baseball America, and Perfect Game. Actually, Perfect Game has us at 8. My bad. And the RPI is really lagging that. I think the NCAA RPI had us at like 34, so not as bad as 70, but I don't know, man. It's pretty frustrating to kind of, I mean, obviously some of these are structural issues that you can't really, patch over and solve. So the question is, what's going to be able to be worked on, and what's going to be like, all right, we got to score 14 runs if we want to win. I think that's the big dilemma right there.
Look, as much as I love 3 true outcomes baseball and watching Georgia Tech hit dingers and win games, that does not seem particularly sustainable long term.
No, I would say it's not.
Yeah, you gotta find some bullpen pitching, and it's a recurring theme, and it just keeps happening. It's just we talked during football season, actually a couple football season ago now, how the defense was bend don't break. Kind of have the same vibes about the pitching performances of this team. And it's not just the pitching, right? We've seen some very, like, a couple weeks now with some very uncharacteristic errors in the infield. It's some of the performances just are not as clean as they should be.
Yeah, 4 errors by Mr. Justin Henry Malloy alone is not great. We noted Luke Waddell had some issues earlier, 2 drop flies against Pittsburgh. It's bad when you can cherry pick similar problems off the top of your head. And quite frankly, I can't really remember having problems like that before. I mean, maybe this is me taking for granted the old Will Height, Wade Bailey combo 2017-18 years. But it seemed like whenever there was a runner on first, if there was a ground ball to the infield, it was an automatic double play, and we just don't live in that reality anymore, frankly.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the COVID practice regulations. I don't know if it's still some rust. It's just that it's not as tight. It's not as cohesive as it usually is, and that is a problem that we've brought up a couple weeks. I mean, we bring it up almost every week now when we're talking about this team, and the fact that we keep bringing it up means that it is not fixed at all. So Something needs to change. Something needs to change. I don't know what it is. Something needs to change. If they want to, it's not even if they want to host a regional kind of deal. It's if they want to make the tournament kind of deal in my mind. Because
I still see projections with us in the top 16, top 8 even, which are reasonable. This is a top 10 in talent team.
Right. But talent, as we see 90 miles to the east, talent does not win you sports events.
Yep. I mean, we just gotta, I don't know. That's the thing too. Like, we don't have a lot of help in the rotation and in the bullpen. It's not like it's AAA underneath us where we can just call up pitchers like an MLB team can, right? Like, this is the hand we are dealt, and we're going to have to either get somebody into rhythm. Hopefully, I think we pick up again some midweeks or some extra action. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if we would struggle more or less if we had midweek games too, because I feel like those would be even more of a coin flip than kind of our weekend pitching situation has been. And looking back at the old schedule, which I did recently to put together some stat stuff that I've been working on, there were a lot more weeks than I remember, where we would play Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that preventing us from getting in the groove, you think? Or is that like, thank goodness we don't have to do that?
That's one of the things I think. I think having to be there is like a mental thing, right? Where you have to be on and performing multiple times a week. I think there is a mental aspect to that. At the
Yeah.
same time, this is a player safety issue, right? A COVID regulation sort of deal with not having as many midweeks. So it might be rust. It might be comfort level. It might be sort of a mindset deal. I just don't know. I think it's a valid theory, potentially. I just don't know what it could be.
Well, I'll tell you this. The entire month of April, we have USC Upstate this week, Auburn next week, Georgia State the week after that, and the school in Athens, four Tuesday games in a row. So we're about to find out right here if it's not being in rhythm or if it's, just not having the stuff. So I guess, now's as good of a time to find out as ever. We've got, I think it's 16 games in the month. So this is the meat of the schedule coming up here.
Rubber, road, etc.
Yep, you're right.
Okay. That, I think, is all we have for this week. Do you have any final items that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I'm going to plug the Todd Stansbury podcast. If y'all don't listen to that, you're going to get more insider information between him and Coach and Andy Demetriv than any of us. But that's a great thing they put together every month or two or three, or I don't know, however often.
It's very inconsistent, but it's usually full of information, I will say.
Well, because Coach Passner dropped in the little gem about how he actually coached the women's team before or in between coaches, which we talked about last week. But Todd or Mr. Stansbury expanded on that this week, talking about when they hired Coach Fortner, she let Coach Passner, just coach the team for the first couple practices just so she could get a feel for that. And I think that is just another notch on my the drum I'm going to beat a lot over the summer, is that women's basketball and men's basketball teams at a lot of schools, and even this school before the current staffing situation was a thing, did not and do not get along like Coach Passner's team and Coach Fortner's team. And I think that says a lot about the culture of the two programs and what the two coaches are trying to build. So it was really awesome to hear that. And I thought it was just a nice follow-up to the tidbit that we got thrown last week. So,
yeah, I mean, you are very keen on this idea that the men's and women's basketball teams at Georgia Tech this year have represented the best in college athletics.
Yep, I am. I'm very much.
You're very, very keen on this. I'm not saying this in a condescending way, although it definitely sounds like it. But it's definitely a narrative that you can put together, right? Especially the way that Passner has motivated his program, the way that Nell Fortner lives her life, more or less. It's been very fun. It's been a very positive experience.
The players and the assistant coaches too, for sure. Just look at the voting thing, or how the women's and the men's team have represented valiant causes in the past year, and I don't know. I guess this is just one more tidbit away from the change and the great causes and all that, which is amazing. And whether it's women's athletic rights or the important social change that we're seeing, I think the thing that kind of floors me the most is I kind of should have guessed that Passner had his hands on this team when you see how year over year, Tech women's basketball has always had a scrappy defensive mindset in general under Coach Josephs and under Coach Fortner. But watching them dive for balls on the ground, that is a Josh Passner trademark. I want to get every last possible chance to get every ball that we possibly can, right? That's what makes Jose Alvarado a great Josh Passner player. That's what makes a Kira Fletcher or a Moses Wright or a Lorella Kubai really fit that brand of basketball. And I think it's really cool that we can kind of see the two sides of the same coin between the two programs and how they they may not score like millions and millions of points, but they play their hearts out there, and I think that really reflects the program, the staffs, the head coaches, and the really interesting dynamic that ties the two together. So,
Yep.
I end a lot.
That's all I got
today. That's all I've got too. So,
the only thing that I do know is that the Masters are this weekend. So,
enjoy.
Happy Masters season, everyone.
Well,
I don't know.
On the flip side of that, got plenty of golf to talk about next week. So,
plenty of golf in multiple ways. All right, we will see you next week.